Alright, so here's a matchup that I feel like I've had trouble with here lately, but I made some changes to my sideboard a little while back. Click on Lantern over here and show it real quick. What I did is I changed my sideboard to add 2 surgical extractions. So that means within my 75, I'm running 4 surgicals. Let's see, I took out Ancient Grudge because I realized Ancient Grudge doesn't really matter that much. I mean, Seal Primordium does the same thing for me. And Ancient Grudge, the only real big thing that works for me is Affinity, which is already a pretty good matchup. So I don't need it. And Ancient Grudge doesn't really take care of Stony Silence, so a second Seal would probably be better. But for now, I'm just running, the Seal and 2 Decays for stuff like that. So yeah, I decided to try these surgicals because of this matchup. So, and my problem was, red-green matchup. People, Wizards printed Yugen and Nulamog. So I needed a way to neutralize more threats. Alright, so I keep it because I got Lantern and Surgical here. Lantern, Shredder, Surgical here. I am a little worried about whether or not my opponent's playing aggro, but I played the Shredder first to start throwing the cards in my opponent's graveyard for good targets. And of course, so now Lantern, get the Thought Seize. Now, I should pause it here. So when I Thought Seized, what I saw in my opponent's hand was Karn, lands, and 2 Stirrings. And I have a needle in hand, so what I do is I grab the Stirrings. That way, after I saw that, I played Needle on Karn, and then during my opponent's draw phase, I let my opponent draw the dead Grove of the Burn Willows. I think it was a Grove on top. During my opponent's draw phase, I surgical the Stirrings, because now I have the lock. It doesn't really matter what my opponent draws. Like there's very few cards that do matter. And while I'm controlling my opponent's draws, I can also control my draws. So yeah, I remove all of them, and I take a good look at my opponent's library, and it's the typical red-green Tron. And I'm really trying to dig myself into relevant cards here, because I can't do a whole lot about Sphere there. My opponent can draw that, but it doesn't matter because my next card is Pithy Needle. So just draw the needle and play it. And let my opponent draw the dead cards he or she has. And mill myself. Play bridge because my opponent's real only out here is to try to draw up to 7 cards and discard Emrakul to shuffle everything back. Well, I mean, even then, like most of the cards in my opponent's, most of the active cards my opponent has are still in the deck. So that won't work either. So I'm already winning. And if my opponent does shuffle everything back, then they're shuffling back dead cards, 2 Oblivion Stones. So it's not really going to help the threat density of my opponent's deck. In the meantime, I'm drawing more active cards. Again, my next card is Pithy Needle, so I can just shut off. I don't know. I can either shut off Yugen. Well, I don't have to shut off Yugen, I guess. All I have to do is shut off Eye of Yugen, so my opponent can't go get Nulamog, and I'm good. So my opponent concedes. This is where the sideboard thing comes in, where I change the sideboard so I now run 4 surgicals in the 75. And look at that. Ghost Quarter Surgical. See what happens here. Pretty good. Of course, I time it. I go ahead and let my opponent draw it, or go get a land or whatever. And I wait till my opponent's draw phase, and then I use Surgical. That way, in case my opponent drew another Urge's Power Plant, then I nab that too. And really, that's going to shut off my opponent's deck. It doesn't matter. From here, I can just Stirrings into the combo, naturally play bridge, and it's going to be a long time before my opponent has any relevant plays. So my opponent concedes right off the bat. So I'm really liking this idea of adding 2 surgicals to the side. Having 2 cages in the side isn't really that great. I found, because I mean, whenever I draw that second cage, it's just kind of dead. And I can stirrings forward anyways. Whereas surgical is a lot more active, especially in like scape shift, ad nauseum, Tron, as you see here. So many matchups, it's good. Uh, but yeah, opponent concedes, and I think I've figured out how to beat the new red-green Tron.